Small payroll bump here, a cap lift there. A retirement age nudge paired with a softer COLA. Borrowing that expands in downturns and shrinks on paper during recoveries. Each piece is calibrated to reduce headlines and extend careers. That hybrid leans on younger cohorts most because phase-ins start now and bite later, while borrowing costs stack interest that your working years will service. Now stakes. Door A shifts the load to current workers immediately, especially those in their prime saving window. It dampens wealth building when it's most powerful. Door B shifts the load to future retirees, mostly today's younger workers, by reducing what they'll receive or pushing it later. It forces more private saving under uncertainty. Door C taxes everyone through the price level, but hits wage earners and cash savers hardest. Asset owners with pricing power can outrun it for a while. Renters and fixed-income households can't. Here's where it gets specific. A 30-year-old software engineer sees a cap lift that grabs more of her marginal dollar. Her 50-year-old manager sees a slower COLA projected into his retirement estimate. Their HR team watches premiums climb as providers shift costs from Medicare cuts. Meanwhile, a recession hits, deficits widen, and inflation reaccelerates just as the central bank hesitates between taming prices and stabilizing jobs. That's the hybrid in a single office floor. What nobody knew at the time, when prior reforms phased in, was how sticky temporary changes become. Bracket creep hangs around. Age thresholds rise again. One-time payroll surcharges outlive the press release. Once a lever proves passable, it's used. That's not cynicism, it's institutional memory. There's also the fairness trap. Every door can be framed as fair. Tax the top because they can pay. Cut benefits for those who don't need it. Inflate together because shared sacrifice. Each argument holds some truth and misses the core. The bill is driven by demographics and health costs, not moral failings. Design matters, but the weight has to land. The only counterweight is growth, more workers, more productivity, more taxable wages, plus healthcare reforms that buy value instead of volume. Even then, you don't escape the doors, you just make them smaller. And smaller doors are still doors you have to walk through. Door A, the millennial tax. While that hybrid hangs over everything, Door A is the one you'll feel first, no speech is needed. The rate ticks up, the ceiling lifts, and your paycheck shrinks the same week. Policymakers call it a contribution. You'll call it a delay. The apartment you don't move into, the car you keep one more year, the savings rate you meant to raise and didn't. Start with the rate. Social Security's combined payroll tax sits at 12.4%, split between you and your employer. Raise it by half a point over a few years, and the numbers look gentle in a committee hearing. On your stub, not so gentle. Every step lands on dollars that would have compounded during your best investing years. $1 at 28 isn't the same as $1 at 58. The younger you are, the more that diverted dollar costs your future. Now consider the cap. Each year there's a wage ceiling where Social Security stops taking its cut. Lifting it, whether to a higher number or removing it above a new bracket, targets upper-middle earners first. Engineers, nurses in overtime, dual-income households in expensive cities. They aren't rich in the caricatured sense. They're the people maxing 401k, as if they can, paying daycare and rent that act like a second mortgage. A higher cap pulls more of their marginal dollar into the system. It doesn't show up as a tax hike headline for them. It shows up as a budget that never quite closes. Here's the pass-through nobody votes on. The employer half of the payroll tax isn't free money from a faceless company. In tight labor markets, it suppresses wages. In loose ones, it trims hiring. It can raise prices at the margin. However it travels, it lands back on workers and customers. A restaurant owner looks at a payroll hike and decides not to add a second prep cook. Wait times get longer. The Saturday shift works later. Everyone thinks they avoided a tax. They paid with time. Phase-ins are the classic tactic. 0.1% this year, another next year. By the time it totals 1 percentage point, most people have adapted. But adaptation has a cost. You save a little less. You carry a credit card balance 1 month longer. You delay student loan prepayments. Those micro delays add up to a quieter, larger bill in your 40s when compounding would have been doing the heavy lifting for you. Bracket creep compounds the problem. If wage growth pushes you into higher tax brackets faster than thresholds adjust, your effective tax rate climbs even without a vote. Layer a payroll increase on top, and the staircase steepens. It feels like you're running harder and staying in place. That feeling is the policy, not your imagination. Let's run a micro-story. A 31-year-old physical therapist in Denver makes $86,000. She started a Roth IRA at 25, nudged to 10% savings 2 years ago, and just got a $4,000 raise. A payroll rate bump and a higher cap absorbed $1,200 of that raise. Her health plan premium rose, too. She keeps her savings rate flat because rent jumped. Nothing so dramatic happened that she could point to it. Dora just walked through her budget and rearranged the furniture. Now from the employer side. A 12-person design firm in Raleigh pays both halves for 2 co-founders on payroll and the employer half for everyone else. When the rate rises, the owners skip their own raises and delay hiring a junior designer. They push a contract role instead. No payroll taxes on their side for a 1099. The work gets done. The pipeline into stable W-2 jobs shrinks a little. Dora interacts with the gig economy in ways that reinforce volatility. If you're in your 20s or 30s, Dora steals compounding years. The early dollars buy the most future. A 1-point payroll increase feels modest until you stretch it across decades of foregone market growth. If you're in your 50s, Dora can still bite, especially if the cap lifts, but you've already banked more of your compounding. That's why this door tilts toward the young, even when rhetoric says shared. Burden. There's a fairness argument for Dora. The program is universal. The funding should be universal and adequate. That's coherent. The problem is timing. We're layering higher contributions onto generations already carrying higher housing costs, childcare bills, student debt, and volatile healthcare premiums. The capacity to absorb new deductions is there on paper. It's thinner in real life. What nobody saw in the talking points was the feedback loop. Higher payroll taxes slow entry-level hiring at the margin. Slower hiring delays wage ladders. Delayed ladders reduce lifetime earnings. Reduced earnings shrink future payroll inflows. Dora tries to outrun its own shadow. Now, none of this means Dora is avoidable. If benefits won't be cut deeply and inflation is politically toxic, raising more money is the lever with the least friction. But if we pull it, we should do it with eyes open. Phase-ins that start later reduce harm to compounding. Pairing with childcare policies can lift participation and offset the drag, and guardrails should prevent temporary surcharges from aging into permanence. Because once Dora is open, it tends to stay ajar. And when taxes start to stall growth, the political conversation slides toward fairness through cuts. Dora B waiting in the hallway. Dora B, the moving goalposts. If Dora grabs your paycheck today, Dora B reaches into your future and moves where the finish line sits. It doesn't feel like a bill. It feels like a rule change. You train for 26 miles. At mile 24, the course director adds 2 more. You still get a medal. It just takes longer, and you're more tired when you cross. Start with the full retirement age. When Social Security began, people claimed later and lived fewer years after. As longevity rose, lawmakers in 1983 nudged the age up from 65 to 67 over decades. That playbook is still on the table. Add months, then years, phased in by birth cohort. On cable news, it sounds neat. People live longer, so we work longer. In a hospital ward, a 63-year-old nurse with a torn rotator cuff hears that has 2 more years on night shift. In a warehouse, a 58-year-old picker with a sore back hears it as pain. The rule is uniform, bodies aren't. Then come formula tweaks that don't announce themselves. Cost of living adjustments, COLAs, can be shaved by changing the index. Use a measure that grows slower than your real basket, and the gap widens over a lifetime. It starts with a few dollars the first year. 10 years in, it's rent. 20 years in, it's groceries. Bend points in the benefit formula can also shift. The math that translates your lifetime earnings into a check can be tilted so higher lifetime earners get relatively less growth. That preserves progressivity on paper and trims outlays in practice. Means testing sounds fair. Reduce benefits for those with higher income in retirement. The catch is how income is defined and where the thresholds sit. If withdrawals from your 401k count the same as wages, savers find themselves penalized for doing what every financial planner told them to do. Set thresholds low or let them creep up slowly, and middle-class retirees get pulled in. The intent is to protect the most vulnerable. The side effect is to tax prudence twice, once when you saved, again when you draw. Politically, Dorby lands where votes are soft. Current retirees have a strong voice. Near retirees watch closely. So reforms tilt toward younger cohorts who can't punish today's Congress. That means you, at 32, will absorb a higher retirement age and a slower COLA, while your parents keep current rules. It isn't malice, it's arithmetic plus elections. But it feeds mistrust. You're told the program is earned, and then the conditions change while you're paying in. There's another layer: disability and early claiming dynamics. If the full retirement age rises, some workers in physically demanding jobs will claim early at a larger penalty, locking in smaller checks for life. Others will try the disability route, shifting costs from one part of the system to another. Costs don't vanish, they migrate. Meanwhile, employers recalibrate. A construction firm sees older workers staying longer and redesigns roles, or doesn't. Either way, the friction costs land on people, not spreadsheets. Let's sit with a microstory. A 42-year-old public transit mechanic in St. Louis runs the numbers. Under current law, his full retirement age is 67. Rumors swirl that it'll rise to 68 for his cohort, with a tweak to COLA. He ups his 401k contribution by 1% and tells his wife they'll keep the second car longer. 5 years later, the reform passes phased in. He feels a quiet relief for planning ahead and an irritation he can't quite place, like the rules moved in the middle of the game and everyone insisted nothing meaningful changed. Dorby also seeds a behavioral shift. If you think benefits may be trimmed, you save more if you can. That's good, until you hit a means test and lose part of what you primed yourself to expect. People respond by shifting savings into forms that don't count as income at claim time: Roth accounts, cash value, home equity. Policy encourages it without saying so. Complexity rises. Advice becomes a maze. Meanwhile, trust erodes. The line "you earned it" blurs when formulas change. That cynicism shows up as lower participation in voluntary retirement plans or riskier decisions, swinging for high returns to make up what policy might take. It shows up as career timing, postponing a job change that would cut current pay but raise future earnings, because today's cash feels safer than tomorrow's rules. There are smarter ways to open door B. Announce changes early with long lead times. Shield truly low earners. Index thresholds honestly. Balance retirement age policy with investments in occupational retraining and mid-career health support. So working longer doesn't mean grinding people down. Pair COLA adjustments with targeted credits for the oldest old, who feel compounding cuts most. Make means testing transparent and modest enough not to punish baseline saving. What nobody likes to admit is that Dorby can be necessary. Demographics don't negotiate, but Dorby without trust shatters the social contract. You keep paying into a system you no longer believe in, and you withdraw from civic compromise just when shared decisions matter. If we move the goalposts, we need to show the field, the chalk, and the timer, and give people time to adjust their stride. Because if backlash builds, politics reaches for door C, the silent lever that doesn't ask permission. Door C, the hidden tax you don't vote on. When door A sparks backlash and door B risks a voter revolt, policymakers lean on the lever that doesn't need a press conference. Borrow the difference, let the central bank keep markets calm, and let inflation carry part of the weight. Nobody votes on it. You just notice that your raise disappears into prices and your savings by less than they did. Here's how it moves. The Treasury issues more debt to cover benefits and healthcare as costs outrun dedicated revenues. If buyers, pensions, banks, foreign funds, absorb it at reasonable rates, the extra borrowing feels painless. If demand thins, yields rise. Then the central bank faces a choice. To steady markets or rescue growth in a downturn, it can cut rates or buy bonds, adding liquidity. Money conditions loosen. Inflation pressure rises with a lag, especially when supply is tight and labor is scarce. Inflation is a tax paid in the checkout line. It clips everyone, but not equally. Wage earners negotiate with delay. Pay bumps trail prices, then catch up unevenly. People in concentrated industries or with rare skills stay ahead. People with less bargaining power lag. Fixed benefits have cost of living adjustments, but those formulas don't capture every shift: housing quality, insurance deductibles, shrinkflation. You keep your nominal benefit. It's real bite dulls. Bracket creep does the quiet follow-up. Tax thresholds often adjust slower than wages in an inflation year, or they miss certain credits and surtaxes. You slide into higher brackets without feeling richer. Governments collect a larger share without changing a rate. Dorsey loves that. It claims progress without a vote. Asset owners and wage earners live two different stories under inflation. If you own a business with pricing power or a rental in a tight market, you can pass through higher costs. Your equity rides the wave, sometimes faster than prices. If you live on a paycheck with little room to negotiate and your savings sit in cash, you sink. The same inflation that trims the real value of debt also trims the real value of wages and emergency funds. Now step into a split screen. On the left, a 35-year-old couple in Austin rents, carries $10,000 in savings, and plans a first home purchase in 2 years. Groceries rise 10% in a year. Rent renews up 8%. Their emergency fund, untouched, lost a month of living power. They push the home timeline back. On the right, a 62-year-old with a paid-off house and a stock-heavy portfolio watches nominal values jump. His Social Security COLA bumps his check. His property taxes climb, but slowly. Dorsey taxed the couple harder. Debt dynamics add another layer. When inflation runs hot, lenders demand higher nominal rates to protect real returns. If the central bank tightens to tamp prices, borrowing costs climb everywhere. Mortgages, car loans, business lines of credit, all more expensive. That's a second channel of pain for younger households trying to buy assets. Inflation first pushes prices up and makes you chase. The response raises rates and makes the chase pricier. Here's where policy whiplash lives. To manage inflation, the central bank must slow demand. To sustain fiscal programs, politicians prefer growth and easier financing. The push-pull creates zigzags, stimulus, then restraint, rate hikes, then pause, guidance that shifts with data. Households can't plan around whiplash. They accept shorter planning horizons. They stockpile or delay. Both behaviors feed volatility. Meanwhile, a subtle narrative forms. Promises kept. Checks go out on time. Benefit formulas apply. Healthcare coverage continues. On paper, the social contract holds. In reality, the purchasing power of those promises drifts down, especially for items without perfect indexation. The appearance of stability masks a recalibration. Dorsey pays part of the bill through time and perception. Now a micro-story from a shop floor in Toledo. A 29-year-old machinist gets a 3% raise after a strong review. Gas is up 20 cents a gallon, eggs spike again, and his landlord emails about market adjustments. He increases his 401k contribution by 1% to stay disciplined, then pulls it back after 3 months because overtime dried up and utilities jumped. Nobody cut his benefit. Nobody raised his payroll rate. The hidden tax arrived in his grocery cart and his power bill. The dollar's credibility is the guardrail. If markets believe inflation will settle and debt is manageable, Dorsey can be used sparingly without lasting damage. Abuse it, and investors demand higher risk premiums. Currency weakens. Imported goods cost more. Inflation expectations unanchor. Then you're not smoothing a crisis, you're feeding it. Restoring credibility requires harsher medicine later. Deeper rate hikes, sharper spending restraint, or explicit tax increases layered on top of the inflation you already endured. There's also a distributional boomerang. Older homeowners with assets see their balance sheets inflate, then face higher insurance and maintenance costs and modest real benefit erosion. Younger renters pay through rising rents, rising rates, and delayed asset entry. Retirees on lower fixed incomes suffer because their basket, medical services, utilities, food, often inflates faster than headline measures.